This stately home near Stockton has just been bought by the millionaire, a son of a coal miner. He has a dream, to bring back jobs and hope to a place that's got one of the highest rates of unemployment in mainland Britain.
Welcome to what is for us a very special occasion, the launch of the new BMW 7 Series.
The latest import at £33,000 is not the image you'd expect at the bottom of Stock High Street. But this dealer's customers can't get enough, and he sold 300 new cars last year. Stockton's haves, those with jobs, have never had it so good. Do you want to buy it?
Oh, I'd love it, yes.
Have you got a BMW already?
I have, yes, yes.
What does having a BMW mean to you?
Well, it's so comfortable, and it's just luxury driving.
What would it symbolise?
Status.
Yes, I suppose so, yes.
Status.
It's awful, doesn't it? Yes.
No, say it.
Yes,
Status.
I suppose it does. Status. Yes, yes, success.
How much did the one that you've got cost?
Roughly about 28,000.
28,000 quid?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money for a car.
It's a lot of care for the money.
Do you ever feel guilty having a BMW, considering all the unemployed there are around here?
No, definitely. I don't understand why I should feel guilty. You know, I've worked for every penny, and one day I hope to own one of those things there.
The big one?
I just hope I do, yeah.
Just down the high street, some of Stockton's have-nots have got other ideas. The police are out in force. There's been a jump in reported crime of 25% over the past 2 years. But now there's a new strain of teenage rowdyism outside discos. It's the have-nots interfering with those who can afford to go in, Stockton's council leader told us. There was some silly pretend fighting last week when they saw our cameras. But incidents have been serious enough, including one murder, to make it more than a local nuisance. In Stockton today, these two societies mingle, unself-consciously. Since Macmillan's time here in the 30s, tremendous efforts have been made to reduce the divide. The majority do have jobs and value their comforts. Yet the divide is widening again. 1 in 4 of Stockton's workforce has no permanent job. Unemployment touches so many that what they all share is a sense of insecurity.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to propose a toast and wish, I think everybody would here, the best of luck and success as well to the Thornaby Impasse Centre.
The official opening of Stockton's latest venture to lift the unemployed.
It's not going to be a piece of cake, this either. Stand in the middle.
A Radio 1 DJ is the local celebrity. The mayor and other bigwigs are there to witness the council's and central government's backing. But it was the local Christian Council of Churches who set out to make the unemployed feel wanted again. The centre is one of many such new affirmations of community solidarity in Stockton, to spread the word that life can have a purpose without paid employment. It's good for morale, but whether it'll ever lead to real jobs can't be known. And in what's called a job club inside Stockton's job centre, the government's come up with an ingenious variation. They've created an official unemployed pressure group.
Before you get on the phone, get your CV there beside you.
Select long-term unemployed are encouraged to believe in themselves again, and the taxpayer provides free phones, stamps and stationery. The role of those who've actually found jobs through the club is testimony to the method, how to succeed in job application by never giving up. Job Club members scour trade directories and even the yellow pages and are encouraged to blitz employers with applications until they break through. For the have-nots here, it's undoubtedly a big boost.
I think the more you write off for, the more chance you have of getting a job. I mean, it's all down to a ratio, I think. You know, sort of, if you only write off for 5 jobs, you might get 1 letter back. Whereas if you write off for 50, you get 10 letters back. The chance of one of those 10 letters could be an interview, say.
So I say to the people, eventually we will get round everybody. We are going to find everybody in Stockton a job. We're going to take over the world. The job clips are.
It's the scale that really does it, you know. There is, in a community here, the average figures look bad enough, but the reality behind the averages is that there are whole streets that have scarcely got a man in employment and only a few of the women, whole streets where the youngsters really only have YTS or community project schemes to keep them going, and therefore everybody feels so powerless because the scale seems quite out of hand. It seems even worse, in fact, than the average figures would lead you to suppose.
These job clubs, are they going to be the answer?
Oh, it's a very partial answer. After all, in the end, they don't create jobs, or at least each job creates about 1 job, I think. What you're doing is sharpening people's effectiveness in competing for jobs, and up to a certain point that's useful, but beyond it, well, you're simply competing people against one another at a higher level once again.
It seems to have killed it anyway, temporarily. I think we need to...
There's real training for real jobs on offer at Stockton's Technical College. But despite installing up-to-date robotics and tuition among the best of its kind, the college is running up against this barrier, that the great bulk of the unemployed in Stockton are either not qualified enough or don't think they'll be capable even to try the courses on offer.
What we're finding is we advertise high technology courses, and there doesn't appear to be a tremendous amount of people falling over themselves to come. It could be we're not marketing the thing properly. But I think it's more likely to be that the sort of people who are out of work are the people without the technical qualifications to be able to get them to latch on to the sort of specialised work that we're doing, the specialised courses.
That's that one completed. Now what we need to do is to put it through the post-processor.
For those who want to acquire new specialised skills, not only are there not enough jobs in Stockton, a new logjam is now appearing. It's that with all the government temporary job schemes, there aren't now enough employers to provide the work experience that's supposed to go with the training.
We're going through step by step previous.
The problem is, in this area, that if you talk to the local Chamber of Commerce, we've got very close links with them, they're at their wits' end to be able to provide the amount of work experience, for example, on these schemes, which are essential parts of the schemes, because of all the various demands on them now.
Some of the critics of many of these schemes say that it really amounts not to dealing with unemployment, but just to managing unemployment. Is that fair?
I think it's a fair criticism in this area at the moment. I'm hoping that, Macabre-ish, that something will turn up. Maybe the politicians have got a vast reservoir of jobs which are eventually going to appear. But at the moment, it does seem to me that, and this worries me as someone who's generally trying to provide a lift for people, we must be careful that we don't pick people up, cycle them, and then dump them. And some people may go through their lives with that sort of cyclic approach and never have a real job. Now, that's a very frightening thought.
Whatever the national figure, Stockton's net loss of jobs continues. But the women are luckier. Most new jobs created, even in manufacturing industry, are going to them, not to the men.
Morning. Production results for yesterday. Line 4 to 904 of 012-021.
Under its new regime, the 250-strong workforce gathers each day for an un-British pep talk on production.
Line 6 in a new model yesterday. They've done 56 of 5M4Zs.
The morning ceremony is also the occasion for merit awards in this non-union factory.
Right, this morning we've got a perfect attendance, which I'm pleased to say. It's awarded to Gillian Littlefair.
And there's £40 cash to go with the certificate.
Congratulations, Gillian. This is for 8 months perfect attendance without lateness or absence. Congratulations.
Stockton here has at last got its first slice of Japanese action, whose investments in the northeast the government has done so much to entice. It may seem an industrial mismatch, mainly to employ women, but Tabuchi UK at least manufactures transformers, not just assembles them.
In our case, we employ lots of young ladies, but their skill or dexterity is as good as compared to Japan. This area, with its, I'd say, the most attractive financial incentives, provides us with an excellent opportunity to start our business on a strongly commercial base.
But Stockton's sunrise industry is dwarfed by the scale of the commercial failure and collapse of traditional heavy industry. The mass of grimy jobs gone forever.
There's grime all over the ground, there's grime all over the ground, there's grime all over the ground, inside this ring of iron.
Gone now from the Ring of Iron are shipbuilding, gone engineering, gone the metal fabrication yards. All that's left is to clean up some of the worst industrial dereliction in northern England.
Across this ring of iron, and it's all...
It's the terrifying scale of the jobs lost here, with little hope of replacement, that's the true measure of what divides north from south. And it explains the anxieties over what will happen to Stockton's last big employer, which has spelt security for generations of workers.
It's a very strong ICI family history in that both of my grandfathers worked for ICI almost from the beginning of ICI in Billingham. Then my own father spent over 40 years himself working at ICI Billingham, and also on my wife's side, both of her parents worked for ICI for a fairly long period. It was really because of ICI coming here that Billingham itself grew from a very small village into a sizable town. And of course, in those days, ICI didn't just provide jobs for people, it also provided housing and social and recreational facilities, really in quite a big way. When I was a boy, certainly, it was very common parlance for people to talk about ICI Billingham, not by that name, but simply as the firm or the factory, sometimes the ICI.
But fertilizers produced here have run into a market glut, and ever more modern plant requires fewer and fewer workers. ICI once employed 16,000 here. Today it's down to 5,700 and falling. Fresh job losses are shaking the old certainty about a job for life.
Hi, girls.
Dad?
Yeah?
Can you come and help me with this homework?
Oh, what is it?
I've got a French test tomorrow, and it's on everything we've done.
Having had 3 generations of my family in ICI at Billingham, I would like to think certainly that there will be an opportunity for the 4th generation, if any of them would like it, and I feel confident that there will be such an opportunity for them. I feel that if I want to have a job for life in ICI, I think that's still available. Clearly, over the years, that's become less of a feature, but equally, I think it's a very important feature in a lot of people's minds who work in ICI at Billingham, that they look for still the sort of security of employment and long tenure, and the company still does recognise long service.
This is Radio Tees.
More music, Radio Tees.
I'm Ruth Pinder. Good evening. Tonight's main story at 6. ICI bosses on Teesside are refusing to be drawn over the number of job losses that could hit the Billingham and Wilton plants. Today's major reshuffle ends speculation that the chemical giants are planning to abandon Billingham.
Since that decision, the scare over jobs has not died down.
White-collar workers at the site.
The fertiliser industry worldwide is in dead trouble.
present time. I'll be very surprised if there's more than 2 or 3 companies out of several hundred actually making any profit out of fertilisers. And that is a big worry for people here. We expect to halve the number of employees working on fertilisers over the next 4 or 5 years. And that will make us competitive with Europe. It will not give us an advantage. It has to happen to keep the business healthy.
I want to be clear so that there's no misunderstanding. When you say that over a period of perhaps 5 years, you'll get down to half, what does that mean for Stockton and Billingham?
It will be a continuation, I think, of what they've seen in the past. It will be the change that's taken place in the number of people here going on. And of course, as the ramp gets smaller and smaller, the impact gets less and less, of course.
You keep on shrinking?
We'll have to keep on shrinking and becoming more efficient.
You may have said that, and I'm not saying that doesn't surprise me, but it would have been wrong of me to comment publicly without being able to state precisely the numbers. I've heard other figures, incidentally.
Worse than that?
Well, as I say, these figures can't be substantiated, but and I don't know where these figures come from. But certainly the figure that you have mentioned very definitely means, of course, that that's a substantial number less jobs available.
Such a hemorrhage of ICI jobs would unavoidably take the haves of Stockton, as well as the have-nots, right back to the 30s. It was a parallel Macmillan himself drew when he went back to Stockton for the last time.
I say, 63 years ago, I went to Stockton-on-Tees, just down from Parliament. The unemployment figure was then 29%. Last November, I went to a party there of my friends. The unemployment is 28%. Rather sad end to one's life.
The young Macmillan captured a seat his party deemed unwinnable, still the only Tory return from Stockton since the First World War. Once elected, the young couple, Lady Dorothy in particular, charmed their supporters. Outings were the big attraction. In Sharabang, Stockton women sallied forth in hundreds to catch a glimpse of the Macmillan lifestyle.
I would say probably the favourite outing was, of course, when they went to Chatsworth. Because, I mean, His Grace, the Duke and Duchess, of course, were there to greet them. And, of course, it was home to Lady Dorothy.
Macmillan's wife was the Duke of Devonshire's daughter.
This is a photograph of Lady Dorothy winning the egg and the spoon race. Oh, she was a marvellous sport.
George Winpenny's mother, under Macmillan, did all the organising of the Tory outings, like the one to Chatsworth.
There's the Grace, the Duke of Devonshire, and the Duchess. That's Lady Dorothy. That's my mother, Mrs. Winpenny. It is a marvellous photograph. It's a bit of real old Stockton history. It's what Stockton folk did all those years ago.
But it was the other face of Stockton that came to haunt Macmillan, especially as the Great Depression deepened.
You saw children running around without shoes on. You saw men in great crowds standing around street corners all day, just with nothing to do, totally demoralized. This had a tremendous impression on his thinking and indeed on his philosophy. He was well to the left of the party in the 30s. His middle way and so on was very, very forward-thinking, and I think he was looked upon, as a bit of a wild man in conservative terms. He saw the distress which individuals suffered. He understood this. He had a great ability to communicate with people, and I think it gave him a very real aim to what he hoped to achieve, to improve the lot of people.
But there are memories, too, of bitter protest. An old communist who was leader in the Union of Unemployed Workers will never forgive the 1931 cut in benefit.
all this talk about him being a caring man. No, I met the fella. Being a caring man is a myth. Because Macmillan, he supported the national government when they imposed the 10% cut in the unemployed workers' benefit and reduced benefit for people like myself by two or three bob a week. But what are they doing now? They're getting people to say, well, you know, he wasn't a bad man. He was a terrible man to my class. No. You see, they'll have this service for them. And you see, there's an old adage, you know, we don't speak ill of the dead. But also we must take care of the living, as well as refraining from. I don't want to speak ill of them, but I'm opposed to the idea of building a myth around them that him and his party are caring people. They are not.
In Macmillan's time, in the 30s, a pioneering survey of the health of poor people in Stockton was published in this book by Dr. George McGonigal, the town's medical officer of health. On one housing estate he studied, 90% of the families were unemployed. And in this group, between the years of 1928 to 1932, the death rate was found to be 3 times higher than the rest of Stockton. The reason for what he called this startling finding, Dr. McGonigal attributed it to the poor not having the money to buy enough food, ill nutrition as he called it. After World War II, that problem, it was thought, would be largely overcome through the benefits of the welfare state. However, during these post-war years, something else has happened. Stockton, like other parts of the northeast, has been shown to be suffering great inequalities in health. These occur between the have-nots in the more deprived council estates and the haves in wealthier areas. This disparity was starkly illustrated last year in one doctor's study of his Stockton practice. He compared 2 sets of his patients, one group in the prosperous Norton Village area of Stockton, and the other right next door on a deprived council estate known as Blue Hall.
The prevalence of the illnesses in the deprived area were far greater than in the endowed controls. And the particular difference was the amount of psychological and psychiatric illness, which was many, many times commoner.
It was 3 times as great.
Yes, it was 3 times great in Blue Hall. The physical illnesses, there was not such a difference. But the anxieties, depressions, overdoses, behaviour problems in children were far, far commoner in the deprived society than in the endowed society.
Now, what effect do you think unemployment does have on creating that greater disparity?
Yes. I don't say that unemployment creates that. It was probably there anyway, but unemployment adds to it enormously. It takes away the whole momentum of a household, that nobody's getting up in the morning to go off to work. And I think from that, from this lack of raison d'etre, everything else flows, and particularly interpersonal problems, psychological problems, marital disharmony, child molestation, all the rest.
On this estate, 65% of men are out of work. To social workers, a clear echo of the 30s.
It's ironic again that we've come completely round. So here we are in 1987, in exactly the same mental frame of mind, still looking for security, still looking for jobs, still looking for a future for our children. Where is the change in that?
In your observation, has unemployment really contributed to that deprivation?
I think unemployment is the factor, the absolute factor in all this.
On Blue Hall Estate, people are struggling and feel that no one down south cares. Panorama talked to many of them. Most didn't wish to be interviewed. But one large family who've lived there all their lives, with 14 adult children and only one in regular work, agreed to give an insight into how they survive.
We don't do so bad from supplementary benefit, but as I say, you rob Peter to pay Paul. We're having six children. I've got one in council care, because he was a villain. Turned out to be a shoplifter. Right little rogue. That was during the times we explained as a difficult. He thought he wasn't getting enough, so he went out and pinched it.
Brian, what was your last job?
Just labouring in the Falklands.
In the Falklands?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
There's not much to tell, really. It's a bit rough, that's about it. The work was hard. We worked 60 hours a week. 7 days a week. 6.5 months.
And what are you going to do next?
Well, I've got some in the pipelines down south, though. London area. Maybe it's Kent, I think. Just labour and building sites.
So you'd have to work away again?
Oh, yeah, well, you've got to. There's nowhere to be here.
Not much hope?
Not at the moment. I'll still look for work. So I do finally get something like, but can't say when. Might be next year, maybe never. I like to have something like to occupy my mind, to keep out of prison and stuff like that. And it's fair enough, you might get a job and it'll only be for like 3 days a week. What are you going to do for the next couple of days? Isn't out, is it?
Who do you blame for it all?
Well, you can't really blame anybody, can you? So, it doesn't matter who it'll be, and you know, it's just, I think it'll be the same.
I mean, is there hope for people of your generation that there will be jobs again?
I think there is for us lasses, but I don't know about the lads.
Because it's women's work that's available, or what?
Yeah. Well, I think there's plenty to do for women. But there's not much work for men, is there?
Well, my gas bill in this week was £200. Just can't manage on that money. You'd have to be at the £100 limit for work.
So
and I don't think there's many jobs for women at that price. At the moment, the Social Security pays them. I have no worries about that.
They pay gas, electric and rent. What we get is just like to live on, and for Gran's clothes. So I don't worry about them.
You seem fairly cheerful, Gary, sir.
Well, yeah, you have to be, haven't you? Life's one just big bed of roses, as we say.
In the old days, the Ransoms might have found jobs in engineering. But today, where such firms do survive, it's by concentrating on their brains. Their manual workers have been cast off. This Stockton firm has become a world leader in designing colossal projects and then supervising the building of them by others.
We found that our customers were increasingly wanting to build the heavy plant themselves. They wanted our design, they wanted our technology, but they wanted to bend the plate and do the hardware. And so I think that is what we did, and that was a critical moment in our history when we turned and went for the high technology, for the project management aspects of it.
Will that generate new jobs in Britain too, if it expands?
Yes, the opportunities are there, which we grasp them, and we are seeing our business increasing. We are looking for more business next year than we did this year, and this year is better than it was last year. We're struggling to find the right level of profit, but the business is there. I think one must be concerned at the hardship of people who are without work, and I think that's got to be changed. But I think the community here mixes well, and in my experience, there aren't areas of particular affluence and stark areas of poverty. Obviously, there are better quality housing in certain parts of towns and so on, but on the whole, people mix very, very comfortably together, and they join in the same pursuits generally. It takes me only 10 minutes to get home from the office, and my wife says it's therefore I spend an extra hour on the day in the office. Anna?
Hello.
Colin, have you had a good day?
Yes.
The Kingdons wish only that other firms would look north to see Stockton's advantages, such as perhaps another recent enterprise in Stockton, celebrity concerts without subsidy. In the parish church last month, in recital, John Lill, one of Britain's top pianists. Just outside Stockton, the Wynyard Park country seat of Lord Londonderry has just been sold to attract another kind of enterprise. Its magnificence to be turned into a luxury centre for international business.
I find great excitement coming into this room. It's magnificent, and just look at the ceiling here, the chandelier.
It's been bought by a Tyneside developer who's already had big successes with shopping centres. Now he plans to make it headquarters for his schemes of £100 million of new investment, with dreams of regeneration in the northeast.
Tranquility coming into this room. I do believe what we need in the northeast are standards, are very high standards, because we're in the global game of attracting business, and you've got to bring into your area the things which internationalists need. As you travel the world, you see what this means. When you go to Atlanta and see the business parks there with the magnificent landscape settings, you know, you sort of say, my goodness, we're not even on the hunt.
Business parks, that you're interested in that?
Oh, yes.
Japanese businessmen, golf courses?
That's right. That's the future. That's the future. We've got to cater towards those. I see the golf courses. I see and sense the leisure activities here. I see this being part of that development, being part of the attraction to an outside industrialist, looking at the northeast and saying, what have we got? Because you not only have to satisfy him, but you've got to satisfy his wife and family. And his wife wanting better shopping facilities. His children want better schools. He wants better leisure facilities. They need the environment. And we've got so much to offer here. This, the northeast, when you get away from the industrial area, you're into the most magnificent countryside very, very quickly. And we have a history and tradition. We've got a lifestyle at times much better than you have in the southeast.
Last week, John Hall put his ambitious plans to the council, who are avid for any job-creating investment.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a meeting of the Policy and Resources Committee to deal with items in accordance.
Stockton's council has several novel features. The Labour leader is one of 4 brothers on the council. Derek is chairman of the Housing Committee. Brother Jack is deputy council leader. And Keith is vice chairman of the council's Leisure and Amenities Committee. All are unemployed. They're no-nonsense Labour moderates and are in general agreement with their opposition on preserving services. Through creative accounting, Stockton's avoided rate capping, but the council can't defer the day of reckoning much longer.
The Labour government say they will, if they're elected, lift those restrictions on local authorities and allow them to decide themselves what should be done and what the local ratepayers they feel can afford without any government restriction. Certainly in this area of Stockton, and I would think the county and the northeast, jobs are crying out to be done. House building, house refurbishing, infrastructure, just to mention a few. Certainly we could play our part there. So it needs the lifting of the financial restrictions.
Well, the situation at...
The council's makeup reflects Stockton's delicate political balance, with the SDP Liberal Alliance making a robust showing and appealing above all for more local decision-making.
In the press that they had agreed to...
It's no good going around saying how terrible it all is. I know it's terrible, but it's not going to help Stockton in the long run. I think we've got to be much more positive, to sell ourselves as being in a very attractive area. We've got a massive resource of people, and that's what we've got to put out in hoping to attract jobs in.
We talk about the north-south divide. It's the north-north divide. You've been in the town, you've seen. There's affluence here, as well as people who are struggling because they're unemployed. And it's the devastation to people. It's the personal anguish. And we all
because we're Conservatives, we're not immune from it. We've got friends and we've got relatives who've been unemployed. We know the tragedy and the effect that has. And this is the major thing that I think is against the Prime Minister in this sort of area, because people have had personal experience of a very bitter life experience.
Do you think she and the government should have done more over these years to show that they care for people?
I think the basic problem is that their policies have been right, but they've been so determined and single-minded that they have sometimes missed the human element, and I think that's always essential and something that Lord Stockton would never have done with his experience of Stockton.
Item 21.
Macmillan's middle way rules in Stockton. The divide between haves and have-nots is not politically polarised as might have been expected. The parties, though critically balanced on the council, share a consensus over the need to get something done about the unemployed. It's not therefore so surprising that down the High Street, the council have given their backing to another new venture taking shape inside the old Odeon cinema.
Council is very, very helpful in this area. And if there is something which is going to create jobs, they're always willing to help you.
This young entrepreneur is building a huge nightclub with capacity for no fewer than 1,600 patrons. He'll boast of the best in entertainment and facilities. He says he's investing £2 million and creating over 100 jobs.
Most of the people, I think, down south think of us in the north as beer guzzling, cloth-capped, fish and chips eating country yokels. It's about time they put us in the right place where we belong. We've got a lot of talents here, a lot of charisma, a lot of style. And I think we export style to down south. In the end, it'll only be the tourists, the Americans and the Arabs who can afford London and the south. You know, us poor people will stay up north.
An invitation to Macmillan's farewell party in Stockton inspired the request that the name Macmillan's be given to Javed Ahmed's other Stockton nightclub. Lord Stockton wrote back he'd be honoured. Now, in a way Harold Macmillan possibly never imagined, Stockton's women sally forth in their hundreds for outings not to Chatsworth, but to luxury nightclubs at pub prices. There's a drive for enjoyment in the face of adversity that defies divisions between haves and have-nots. There's remarkably little sign of real resentments at the way things are. More an acceptance that things are as good now as they're ever going to be. It's an ironic twist to Harold Macmillan's famous phrase, "Never had it so good." In Stockton's parish church, they ring out a special peal of bells for the old Earl. His passing ironically coincided with a new catchphrase, that we're not so much two nations across a north-south divide as two nations side by side.
I don't equate people different in any part of the world, never mind between the north and the south. I think we all want the same things. That we're not getting them in the north is the shame.
A lot of people here in the northeast are continually crying about how awful it is. And so the image in the rest of the country is that it is awful. People ought to be given a leaflet saying, come to the northeast.